This is part 5, can you believe it? 5 in a series of videos where I explore an alternate world where John F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1946 and how that would change the Marvel Universe. Without Apocalypse, there's no Weapon X program. Mr. Sinister was indirectly responsible for James Howlett rejoining humanity in 1907. No Apocalypse, no Sinister, no Wolverine. Logan could have still come back to humanity, but I see no reason he would. Apocalypse's celestial technology was how the Weapon X program did their thing, but he wasn't the only mastermind. Romulus was pulling the strings, and he's still in the shadows in this timeline. You might think Romulus would somehow find someone to fill in that Logan-shaped hole, but I'm not so sure. Romulus has other agents, but excluding Sabretooth, the common denominator seems to be trauma that makes manipulating their brains easier. Winter Soldier, near-death experience, plus the agony of being turned into a cyborg assassin. Wild Child, the secret empire tortured him to make him what he is. Logan watched his actual father murder a man he thought was his father, and then Logan killed his actual father and was banished by his mother. Victor Creed was, as near as we can tell, always a bad seed. He wasn't the type to be haunted by his past, or lack of past like Logan, which might explain why, if we can trust this memory, Sabretooth was Romulus's willing partner. Sabretooth had false memories from before Weapon X, but it seems like Sabretooth shrugs it off easier than Logan can, which I maintain makes Sabretooth a less ideal agent than Logan. We're not told how Romulus first met Sabretooth. I assume it went like this. Hey, you're mad at Logan for killing your brother? I've got an idea that'll result in decades of mental torture for him. Ooh, that sounds lovely. Maybe Sabretooth joined Romulus for other reasons, but avenging his brother seems the most likely. I don't think Sabretooth would be working for Romulus without that desire for revenge in this timeline. Romulus could kidnap Sabretooth and brainwash him, but Creed doesn't have that trauma, so I don't think that would work. So what would the Creed family be up to without Logan in their lives? In X-Men Origins Sabretooth, Victor kills his brother Luther, and it's implied he kills his parents. But in Wolverine Volume 4, Issue 11, his mother is alive many years later. Inconsistencies can be attributed to the CIA wiping his mind before his time with Weapon X. We don't even know if he had a brother Luther. Origin 2 reveals his younger siblings, Saul and Clara, who are referenced in Ruins of Ravencroft Sabretooth, so I'm pretty sure they existed. Clara says Victor killed Mom and Pop, even though we know Victor's mom lived at least until his time with Team X in the 1960s. Maybe this is more inconsistencies because of the mind wipes, who's to say? In Ruins of Ravencroft Sabretooth, Creed says Logan killed Clara, but the last we saw of her 2 years earlier, she was alive. While we'll probably never get confirmation on how she died, I suspect it was Victor who killed her. Sabretooth has a very, very perverse sense of loyalty isn't the right word, but something like that to those he considers his kindred. I don't know if he's upset Logan killed Saul Creed so much as he's upset he didn't get the chance to prove Saul is just as nasty as he is before Logan killed him. That seems to be the big thing that drives Creed, with Logan and with Wild Child. He wants the satisfaction of knowing there are others just as bad as he is. I wonder, and this is a bit of a stretch, but I wonder if Victor killed Clara either because she taunted him that Saul was now out of his reach, or because she was nothing like him and frustrated he couldn't prove his point, he kills her. Or, as we see much later in life, he craves a telepathic cooldown to keep his animalistic rage in check. Maybe his animal side won out, and Clara was just in the wrong place, wrong time. Since Logan doesn't kill Saul Creed, I suspect Victor eventually convinces Saul to hit the road with him. If you don't, I'll kill Clara. Ordinarily, Sabretooth wouldn't care too much about keeping a low profile, but he wants to put Saul through the monster crash course, so they move through the big cities at a clip. While Saul was antagonistic toward Logan, let's look at things from his perspective. He sees this thing more animal than man, his sister is smitten, he's reminded of his brother. His actions in Origin 2, while certainly villainous from Logan's perspective, are understandable from Saul's. It's in New York City that Saul first acts in defense of someone else. The Creed brothers are out for a night of debauchery when Saul hears an older man beating a younger woman, almost a kid. This reminds him of Victor's abusive relationship with his siblings, how he forced Saul to scar Clara, or else Victor would do worse. Saul kills the man, likely terrifying his wife, Clara Prast, a young woman with the ability to communicate with plants. The Gaborim were killed thousands of years ago, so the Runaways as a team don't exist in this world, and won't be taking Clara with them to the present day. Instead, she's eventually discovered by Tobias Messenger, a predecessor to Charles Xavier, who formed his own team of mutants who later tried to bring the Great War to an end. After recruiting Clara to his team, Messenger was almost certainly aware of the Creeds, but probably thought it best not to get involved with them. After After Saul killed Mr. Prast, he and Victor come into conflict with the Upward Path superheroes of this era. While they were tougher than Victor's typical victims, the Creed brothers survived their encounter and moved on. Victor may not even know what set Saul off when he killed Mr. Prast. As far as we know, Saul hadn't killed anyone before now, so Victor sees this as a win. You're that much closer to being more like me than you would care to admit. Saul tells himself he's nothing like Victor. Yes, he's got the rage, but he tells himself it's a righteous rage, and if he can channel that against those he feels deserves his ire, he won't be the monster Victor believes he is. Victor probably knows Saul is still fighting his true nature, so he's going to keep pushing him. They enlist in the war. Saul, so he can point his animal rage at his enemies, and Victor, he just likes to kill. They get separated when Saul tries to save the life of French soldier Ernest St. Ives, who had recently refused to be taken by death, and was instead left with a death touch. When St. Ives touched Saul, it very nearly killed him. Saul's sister said Logan's healing factor was better than Saul's, so something like this, he's not going to walk away from it a few minutes or even a few days later. Victor, even with his enhanced senses, was fooled and moved on. Saul comes out of his encounter with St. Ives in a weakened state, though still eager to return to combat. By now, worried Victor may have been right after all, as he's dismayed to discover he enjoys the fighting. But his superiors noted he's not in the shape he was, and they instead put him in a small team to rescue John Steele, a super soldier who went missing in Germany near the end of the war. Possibly because of his near-death experience, Saul, once an exceptional tracker a decade ago, is unable to find Steele. After the war, Saul is in no hurry to return to his sister. The Upward Path likely alerted the authorities across North America that he killed a man, and he's partly afraid Victor may find him, and partly afraid he might harm Clara further, as he isn't sure he can now abandon this life of violence. He takes work as a deckhand, eventually finding his way to crime-ridden Madripoor, which suits his new thirst for righteous violence just fine. It's here Saul attracts the attention of Romulus, who sends his agent Sarah to investigate him. Even before his experiences in the war, Saul wasn't as strong as Logan, and his powers only got weaker after he was nearly killed by Ernest St. Ives. But he's still just a hair above average. In Earth 616, Seraph was able to seduce Logan into working for Romulus, but Saul is a different beast. By the time Logan met Seraph, he had gone from full-blown animal to trying to reclaim his humanity. But Saul's going in the other direction. A little rough around the edges, but not nearly the animal Wolverine was when they met. By now, he's gotten more aggressive, and Seraph wouldn't be able to use the same tactics on Saul she used on Logan. Not to mention, Logan's memory problems by the time he was Romulus's agent made it easier to manipulate him, while Saul has no such problems. Romulus has lived with an animal nature for maybe thousands of years if we believe him, so he recognizes in Saul the same bestial rage Victor was trying to encourage. Maybe he thinks if he continues Victor's work, Saul would make a better agent he can control. Through Seraph, Romulus points Saul in the direction of various criminal organizations in Madripoor, and while Saul is more than happy to feed the beast and knows these aren't nice people he's dealing with, he's not an idiot, and he knows he's being used. He just doesn't know who he's being used by, so for now, he keeps his head down. But it all comes to a head when Saul runs into Victor once again. When Victor believed Saul had died, he joined up with some German soldiers. Victor didn't have any patriotic reason for fighting in the war, so he probably started helping the enemy just for a laugh. After the war, Germany is at the mercy of the rest of the world, but there are underground organizations who see the post-war landscape as ripe for the taking. Victor becomes a strongman for one such organization, which eventually sends him to Madripoor, as many of their operations are being interfered with there. In Earth 616, Romulus was, at least at one time, allied with Baron von Strucker in World War II, von Strucker being one of the key leaders of Hydra in the 20th century. While Hydra was originally a splinter group of the Brotherhood of the Shield centuries ago, it was von Strucker's transformation of the Nazi Thule Society that birthed the modern incarnation of Hydra. What if, bear with me here, what if Romulus contacted what was left of old-school Hydra in between world wars, and then he contacted von Strucker during World War II, and the rest is history. It's no more convoluted with anything else Romulus is credited with in his long life. So Sabretooth is working for some vestige of Hydra, and is sent to Madripoor to take care of their enemies. This is exactly what Romulus wanted, so he could either convince this rival world power to join him, or eliminate them if they refuse. While Romulus has eyes and ears in many corners of the globe, it's impossible for him to know everything, so it's just his bad luck his agent's brother happened to be with the Hydra team sent to Madripoor. It ends up being a bloodbath. Sabretooth starts killing his own men, not out of any traditional loyalty to his family, but if anyone's going to kill his brother, he wants to do it. Sabretooth's had his strength enhanced at least twice in the modern day, and I can't help but wonder if Mr. Sinister would have boosted his power as well. He did it for Gambit. If he can do it, I imagine he definitely would do it for all of his Marauders, just so that they're more likely to get him what he wants. So pre-World War II, in a world with no Mr. Sinister, I imagine Sabretooth, while he's still terrifying, he's not the unkillable juggernaut, no relation, that we know in the present day Earth 616. Saul is definitely in no condition to walk away from this fight, but after everything he's been been through, he's finally ready to say, you know what, Victor? You were right. I'm a lot like you. Like I said, Bloodbath. Any of Romulus's people he may have had working under Saul's lead at Madripoor, the pre-Hydra agents with Sabretooth, all dead. Saul is dead, and Sabretooth as near as he's ever come to dying. And while Romulus maybe didn't get what he wanted in an alliance with Proto-Hydra, he gets the one foot in the grave Sabretooth to study. Romulus has his hands in many governments around the world, so if he thinks he can gain something from this killing machine, either cloning him or recreating the most weaponizable parts of him, he's going to put that in motion and recruit some of the smartest men he can find to do so. The Weapon X program, as we know it from Earth 616, doesn't exist in this world, with no Apocalypse lending out his celestial technology, or Mr. Sinister's Nazi experiments being discovered by Allied scientists. But Captain America does exist in this world, so the larger Weapon Plus program must exist. And we now see Romulus will go on to create something not exactly the Weapon X program, but something quite similar that will have an effect on this world. Sentry, whose origins are tied in with Weapon X, might still go on to exist, as would several others probably. That's it for today. A tragic look at this family and where they would be without Wolverine cutting them up. Hope you guys liked this one. I certainly did. And if you did, I've got some more ideas in mind for this world, so I hope you stick around for them in the future. Until then, have a good one.